sitting on the tail end of the previous conversation. It was very exciting to hear all your thoughts about copyright and AI. I think, as you can see, these conversations are not just happening in this room; it's happening across policy rooms across the globe, and people are still trying to figure out what is the appropriate direction, what to do, what are the fair rules, what are the ethical considerations. And so you are really, truly at the right place at the right time in terms of history. And if you wanted to make your mark regarding artificial intelligence, this is the right time to dive in because thoughts are still being formed, especially if you have great intentions for, for building a more ethical future, digital future. I think this is the right time. So kudos to the team that has planned this, to the organization. And I hope that at the end of this training, we raise more human rights activists and people who can go into the corporate world and into advocacy to, advocacy to fight for better rights of people in the use of artificial intelligence. I wanted to find out, am I the one going to project my slides, or would that be centrally done?
No, please, you could project your slides.
All right, great. 1 second. So I have sent a request, but we can start anyway. So today, for this very short session, we're going to be discussing platform accountability. And just hearing everyone in the room speak, I understand that there's already some understanding as to okay, let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, this is better. Fantastic. All right, great. All right, awesome. So we're going to be talking about platform accountability, and from the conversation in the room, I can tell that a lot of people here are already very familiar with, what platform accountability is. And I wanted to start off with, a day in your life, platform edition, right? This morning, it's morning where I am, it's just 6 a.m. where I am. But this morning, you probably woke up and picked up your phone, right? And went on Facebook or Twitter and went to check out the news on Facebook. And when you checked out the news, you were on a platform, right, called Facebook. But the news was curated by algorithms. The news for you was curated by algorithms. You'd be shocked to find out that I myself can go on my Facebook page and not find the same things that you're finding. And so platforms use artificial intelligence, use very complex AI systems that have, very complex algorithms to provide information for us. Let's say then you went, sorry, I'm going to check the chats. Okay, it's the wrong thing you're seeing. Okay, you can see this now. I think you were seeing my notes. All right, so you went on Google Maps and you checked for the fastest route, and the fastest route led you through another street, right? That is also a very complex AI system where you have to use a lot of historical data, use a lot of traffic prediction, and a lot of user-generated data as well. And let's say in the evening you get back and you go on Netflix, you try to find a movie recommendation. That movie recommendation is, they say, oh, because you liked this movie, now you're going to watch this movie, right? So movie recommendation is also, an AI system, AI, recommended information. And then you went on YouTube and there was something recommended to you, and that's also powered by AI. And then you were shopping on Amazon, and for some reason you mentioned that you needed some form of detergent in you Googled it on Google, but now Amazon is recommending it to you. And so we see that digitally we are in a very interconnected digital space where the data that we put out is many times being shared across platforms, but also very, very algorithm driven. In our work, we use, ChatGPT, we use Gemini, we use Claude, we use all these things also to, gather information, finesse our thoughts, make life easier for us. And AI has come to stay, especially in our use of other platforms. And so when platforms have such great power, it has to come with great responsibility. So, does someone want to say something?
Please, I'll have the person muted.
All right. So when platforms have great power, for instance, if you're doing research and you use Gemini, which I use Gemini for my research, I have thoughts and I put them together and use Gemini to fine tune it, right? When you use Gemini, for instance, or you use ChatGPT or use whatever it is you use, or you go on social media to to search for latest information or latest news, what you're doing is you are submitting, generally speaking, you are submitting yourself to truth or to receiving truth or facts from these platforms. And it's like the kind of responsibility we give to schools to say, okay, if you're going to provide information to people, at least fact check, at least verify, at least put some diligence into place for them to have access to truth or to facts at the very least. And so that's when you think of information generating artificial intelligence tools. When you think of platforms like social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and the rest, they have also a lot of responsibility in using algorithm, in using AI systems to ensure that it's a safe space. And so we can liken that in our general life to living in a city, right? So if I'm living in a community, my community is owned by all of us, right? The community is communal, as the word implies. However, there are leaders in the community who have the responsibility to make sure that it's a safe space, it's a safe place for us to live in. So, for instance, if my community has a newspaper service, right? We have a local newspaper company that shares news every day. I'm talking about, physical newspaper. The government of the council, the leaders of that community have the responsibility to ensure that I cannot go to the newspaper company and say, I want to publish an ad about Oyediro Joshua. And they ask me, what about Oyediro Joshua do you want to publish? And I say, oh, I want to say that Oyediro Joshua stole my shoes and he came to my house and he broke in and he did all of that. The newspaper company has the responsibility because they have great power. They're providing news and information to the community. They have that power. And so therefore they have the responsibility to fact check and say, hey, before we can publish this news, why do you say that he has done this? How can we be sure? Did you report to the police? Is there a statement in that regard? Is the case currently going on? Can we really publish it? And so just taking these already established systems that we have in the physical world and taking them to the digital world it highlights greater what the responsibilities of platforms are. And the interesting thing is that algorithms are not neutral, right? So we often think that when you go on, say, Twitter and you see something trending, you're just like, oh, I guess a lot of people are just tweeting about this and this is important. So when we think someone is trending, then that person must have done something important or something that deserves my attention. But the thing is, algorithms that power platforms are products of design choices. It's actually a design choice to ensure, and as we'll see later on, it's actually a design choice to ensure that some things are amplified. It's also a product of data biases, as we'll also see later, and also many times economic incentives. These platforms are companies at the end of the day. They're not charity organizations that are trying to, what's it called? That are trying to do good, right? They're trying to make a lot of money. And so there's also sometimes and many times and maybe all the time, economic incentives behind the algorithms that power platforms. And yet they have to balance that, right? As advocates, especially if you work in digital rights here, as advocates, your demand is that, yes, I know you want to make money, but there are real consequences. So there are real world harms that come with not taking the responsibility to safeguard the people that use your platforms. If you are in HR here, there are marginalized, there you can marginalize a whole gender or people from a whole part of the world because of the AI systems that you use to screen your jobs. If you are a product manager here and you work on products, um, you can unintentionally erode trust because your systems are not safe enough and you haven't tightened up privacy. You can also, of course, risk significant organizational reputation. Right. So, why should this matter to you, right? Why is it that you should be learning about platform accountability? I feel like everybody here is already aware of why. But like I said, if you're a founder, you are building a product, you are tweaking features on your product, this it's not just a nice thing to do when you have ethical AI systems or ethical algorithms embedded in your product. It's actually a commercially sound thing to do because when you tighten up ethics around your algorithms, what you're going to do is you're going to increase trust, user trust, right? And you're going to build responsibly. And at the end of this, I'm going to share a bit of what I think is the future based on my work over the past 7 years in this space. What I think is the future of really AI, the use of artificial intelligence in digital products or on platforms. If you're an HR professional, I've already mentioned that you are probably going to be adopting tools that are, helping with recruitment and performance and maybe even communicating with staff. You have to ensure that these tools are fair and equitable and compliant. If you are a corporate professional, very similar to being a founder, how does the digital ecosystem in which you work and interact with and the tools that you use, how do they mitigate risks, right, for the on the platforms that you use? And if you're in academics, which is something I'm very passionate about, how do you shape the next generation of thinkers and innovators? How are you ensuring that your computer science student in your university is thinking already about building ethical products? How are you ensuring that your lawyers are thinking very well about policies and, sorry, 1 second, I need to mute myself. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I have a little baby here looking for his daddy. Okay. I hope I can just continue. Right. So if you're in academia, so I was talking about lawyers. How are you thinking about people who are thinking about policies that really do help? And if you are teaching MBA students or business students, how are you thinking about people who are not just thinking about the bottom line or money, but they're also thinking about impact, right? So we're going to talk a bit about AI's influence on platforms. We're going to talk a bit about AI's influence on platforms, and I will just share a bit, just some of what AI and the algorithms that power AI can look like on platforms. And I'm sorry to be a negative Nancy here, but I'm going to be talking a bit more about the risks. Of course, there are great benefits. I think maybe in the course of your course, you may have spoken a bit about the benefits of using artificial intelligence and how it can help our work to be faster. Trust me, I understand. I use AI to make my work faster. I love, for instance, on Netflix, I love the recommendations because now I don't have to start Googling and going on Rotten Tomatoes to look for movies that are similar to this. I can just watch a movie and Netflix recommends similar movies. So yes, of course, there are great benefits of using artificial intelligence. However, in this presentation, I'm going to talking a bit about risks because I want you to be aware, especially as you are leaders, as you're going to be leaders who will be making significant decisions. about the use of artificial intelligence in your organization or the development of AI tools, right? All right, so the first one I want to talk about is algorithmic amplification and societal fracture. Now, basically, what this means is that because we've discussed that platforms are businesses, right? We're going to use Twitter because I don't like Twitter. I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't probably share my personal opinions about this, but we're going to use Twitter because Twitter uses this, like this, Twitter is the case study for algorithmic amplification and societal fracture. Now, what does this mean? Twitter is a business. Twitter is trying to make money. How does Twitter make money, or how does Twitter ensure that its platform remains relevant? The goal for most of these platforms is engagement. They want, if you're a content creator here, you know that even for you to make money is engagement. If you post videos on YouTube or TikTok or tweet, or you tweet a lot, you know that if you're going to make money off these platforms, they have to engage your content. They have to, people have to like, people have to share, people have to comment, people have to keep clicking on your link, right? And reacting to basically what you've produced. And so that is the business model. That's your own small business model in your microcosm of content creation. But that is the larger business model for the platform themselves. They need more engagement. They need people to continue to speak. And the study of human nature is that people only react to things that elicit reaction, if I can put it that way. So for instance, nobody claps when a plane, well, people, I was on a plane yesterday and people actually clapped when it landed. So I guess people clap when a plane lands. But nobody really tweets, oh my God, a plane just landed. This is awesome. Nobody does that all the time. But if a plane crashes or if there's been an incident, then it will generate a lot of attention. And so the human condition or the human psyche is that we generally tend towards contrarian things, polarizing issues, fake content, things that evoke emotion, things that evoke conflict. And so platforms take this business model, they take this human psychological thing, and then they build an algorithm around it. They build complex algorithms around it. They tell the AI system using the algorithms to say, you know what? I need you to maximize engagement, right? I need you to look for any content that is keeping users scrolling, clicking, reacting, whether it's true, whether it's not true. That's our secondary. We don't have, our biggest priority is not, okay, first of all, is the content true? Is it good? Is it healthy for consumption? That's not the goal. The goal is, are people engaging? And if the answer is yes, go for it, right? And so when we have advocates who their job really is to push the platforms to say, listen, you have to be responsible. We understand you need to make some money, but you have to be responsible about maximizing engagement. Because the implication of algorithmic amplification is that we're going to have platforms that are the content that are thriving and are in your face are very harmful content. They may be false. The platforms may not do enough job in content moderation because content moderation requires, oh, okay, if something is not true, even though it's gaining engagement, let us shut it down. That's against their business. That's against their business plan, right? So unfortunately, the consequence of algorithmic amplification amplification is societal fracture because now we have polarizing content, false content, emotionally charged content, but because they are driving engagement, they are being prioritized by the algorithm, right? And so you have an angry society, you have a society that is riddled with misinformation. And we see most of this a lot around, specific hotspot times. So when you see things like election periods, or you see things around civil conflicts, which we'll see some case studies, civil conflicts, election period, maybe particularly about certain genders, maybe a woman journalist or a woman politician, or marginalized people, things like that. You can then see that even though these hotspot periods and marginalized people are already facing, it's already a fragile period, or they are already having fragile experiences in the real world. Social media then drives that even further. And so we will start with the Myanmar case, which is very also similar to the case in Ethiopia. So Myanmar opened up the internet. I think, was it 2017 or 2027? It has 7 in it. Please fact check that. And so Facebook was their primary source of internet. It's the same way you go to some communities across Africa, and when they say internet, they really just think Facebook. Like, that's the internet is Facebook for them. And so that was the situation in Myanmar as well. Facebook was the primary source of information and social media. And so if you wanted to know anything online, you just go to Facebook. And in the real world, they were having some conflicts, some tribal conflicts against a certain Muslim minority community called the Rohingya Muslim minority community. And that was being translated online. And again, remember, algorithmic amplification. So because a lot of people, were putting out hateful, inflammatory information campaigns against this minority group, it was being amplified. People are engaging it. And so it became an echo chamber of hate. It became an echo chamber of ethnic tension. And even there was an investigation, an internet investigation by Meta itself, that found that its algorithm had proactively amplified these kinds of content. And so Meta was complicit in the resultant deaths, thousands of deaths of these people, and they were also forcibly displaced, over 700,000 of them. And it's very similar to the case in Ethiopia as well. It's also the Tigray community, where Meta's algorithm supercharged the spread of harmful communication around that community as well. And the big issue here has been, it's not necessarily about the algorithm, because again, it's logical to say, okay, our business model is engagement, let's amplify engagement. However, the platform responsibility here is then to say that if we're amplifying engagement, we must be aware that some things that are false, some things that are hateful, some things that are not true are going to be amplified. Some calls for violence are going to be amplified. And are we going to stand by and watch that happen? No. And so the responsibility here would require having things like content moderators. If you're going to provide your services to people outside the English-speaking world, you're going to provide your services to people who speak Swahili, who speak Yoruba, who speak whatever other language. You are going to have content moderators that can speak those languages, that also understand the nuanced context of these people, and can spot false information, can fact check, can spot information that is written in another language that's probably a slur. But if you ask Google, right, what does this mean? Google will just say, oh, it means cockroach, right? When we think about what happened in Rwanda, if there was social media, then I probably think it would have been worse, right? So when you think about people's, oh, it just means cockroach, and then maybe an English-speaking content moderator is like, oh yeah, I mean, cockroach is just an animal. It's even a cute animal. And then they say, oh, we pass it. We don't think it's wrong. But people in those countries knew exactly what was meant by, kill the cockroaches, or calling somebody a cockroach, right? So it's very important that as platforms, or if you work for a platform, or if you use a tool, there must be content moderators that fit and match the profile and the context of your users. It's very important. I know that nowadays, it has been a big issue with many platforms, to hire content moderators that fit the context and the nuances of the people they are offering their services to. And many platforms are now utilizing even artificial intelligence, right? So they have, instead of content moderators, they have content moderation systems that are powered also by algorithms. That's up for conversation. That's still something that people talk about. But again, I go back to that nuance, that context, that human feel, right? It's very important. All right. So next risk we'll talk about. I think somebody's unmuted. I can hear some sound. The next risk we'll talk about is automated bias and discrimination. What does this mean? It's very simple. AI systems and the algorithms that power them are trained on historical data. They can actually use some predictive data, but your predictions are also done based on history, right? So we are not omniscient. We don't know what is going to happen without data, right? Human beings have to. It's how you also use your intuition, where maybe you fell down from the stairs yesterday. Tomorrow you can predict that, okay, these stairs are slippery. If I don't wear rubber slippers or rubber shoes, I will fall down. You've used historical data to train yourself for the future, for your behavior in the future. And that's exactly what AI systems and machine learning and all these things are trained on. They are trained on historical data. But the problem with historical data is history is not perfect. Our lives in history is not the ideal life we should be living. We always, as a people, are aspiring to get to whether you call it a utopia or you think it's possible, but a better future, a future in which things are better, things are more perfect, people are more kind, there is more justice, there is more, ethical considerations for things, there is less discrimination. But if you have systems that are built based on historical data, what you're going to have, first of all, is a slower progress towards a better society, because we will now be stuck, working with these systems that are basically working on history. And then it also reflects, right, the already existing societal biases. And so let's talk about what this means. We've already kind of talked about it, but people call it automated apartheid. It's basically where certain groups of people are, just by the system of AI, but maybe in a traditional context, by the systems of a government. It could be a system in a workplace or a system in governance, or now in this situation, a system on a platform, right? Are just automatically discriminated. There's nothing you can do. The fact that the data has been trained to say if this person is this and this age and this gender and this religion, we have never hired them before, therefore I don't think we should recommend them, right? And a practical example is the hiring tool that was built by Amazon in 2020, 2014, right? It's a long time ago. It's about 11 years ago, and I'm glad that Amazon kind of learned from that scenario. And so what happened? Amazon was developing this AI tool. I mean, Amazon is a big company, so it did make sense for them to try to automate most of their hiring processes, because they're trying to scale, and that's what businesses are trying to do, really. It's just to scale and reduce how much money they're spending. It's very simple. And so they were developing this AI recruiting tool, and their goal was really to automate resume screening processes. So they call for a job, so many people are applying, we don't have the eyes all the time or think it's practical to look through everybody's resume. So let's build a tool that can screen, let us know what the best resumes are, and then we basically invite those ones for an interview and things like that, right? And by the way, this is a tool. This is not the AI, not the Amazon tool itself, but even right now in 2025, modern day recruitment is largely based on these resume screening process tools, right? So if you are applying, and that's another thing, if you're applying for a job, nowadays people know how to now tweak the system. It's like you're trying to ask, I don't know if you've seen all these memes, you're trying to ask ChatGPT to do something, and ChatGPT is like, I'm not supposed to do it. Then you now trick it into doing it. That's what we can now do for most of these resume screening tools that hirers are using. So you say, oh, you know what, the AI likes this, and that. You put all these things in your resume, and then you get a better chance. But there are people who maybe don't have access to that information and just write their resume, write what they've done. They don't want to use certain words. They want to speak in their own language, right? But AI is reviewing your work, and there's language, there's words that AI is looking for, right? So that's also another thing. But anyway, let me continue with this case study. So the AI was then trained on decades of old resumes that have been submitted to the company. Now, remember, Amazon in itself, the first presumption, which I don't know if they articulated, but their first presumption is to think that their decades of resumes and their decades of hiring history has been perfect. They have not had any biases before. They've only hired the best people. They have been fair to all genders. They have been fair to all geographical locations. They have been fair. They have been ethical. And so that presumption, whether it was articulated or not, then led to them taking all that data and say, this, based on this data of who we have hired before, where they have been from, what languages they speak, what they look like, what they sound like, based on this data, that's the kind of people we want to hire going forward. And so they fed the AI with this data. And thankfully, the team of engineers who were working on that project began to realize that, okay, hold on a second, there's a problem here. Resumes were being screened, and they were realizing this is disproportionately tilted towards a particular gender, right? So the AI, based on the data it was provided with, had taught itself that only the male candidates were preferable, because it just looked over the past couple of years, how many men have been hired? Definitely, that means the men are greater or better. And so if there were resumes where they had strong female candidates and strong or maybe even less than strong male candidates, you probably go for the male candidates because, okay, Amazon prefers to hire men, so let's go for the men. Not thinking. Remember, AI doesn't have that, there's just that soul and human thinking that it doesn't have. And so based on that historical data, we saw automated bias and discrimination. And of course, Amazon pulled back, sorry, on the tool and didn't use it anymore. But yes, some of the things that we found were gendered language. So if you had things like women in your CV, women's chess club, women's rugby, even though that showed leadership potential and actual leadership, I don't know the word, but actual playing out of leadership, it automatically disqualified you because you're actually being penalized for being a female applicant. And then educational background as well, it penalized graduates that were from all women's college. And also, like I said, you all know the ChatGPT language. Any word that didn't sound, again, any word that didn't sound like this is the word that men use. If you don't use words like executed, captured, then you are joking. You don't need this job. And so Amazon, thankfully, the engineers were able to see that, and Amazon pulled back from using that or from deploying that tool even further. And so those are just some of the risks. Because of time, I'll just stop there. But some other risks and harms that come with the use of AI and the algorithms that power them on platforms, misinformation and disinformation. This is actually very dear to me because the work that I do at Lawbrella and all the other organizations I work with has a lot to do with this, right? Recently, we ran a campaign about deepfakes and how that if you go on Twitter, right, Twitter's AI tool is called Grok. It's embedded into the system and you can just ask it questions, right? There are people, right, at least in Nigeria, that if you post a picture of yourself on Twitter and just say, happy birthday to me, or people posting pictures of their daughters to say, hey, my daughter looks so good today. Somebody will comment and say at Grok, please undress this woman. And Grok will undress the woman, at least as at when we did the campaign. Whether or not that has been fixed is another conversation. But the fact that the Grok system had it had capacity to even do that is a big platform accountability problem. You have the responsibility to ensure that your tool, your AI-backed tool, does not have the capacity to create deepfakes that can really destroy somebody's life, right? There are other things that people ask Grok to do that I can't even utter with my mouth, but you can imagine, right? They also have things like, they have hallucinations, which is a big misinformation and disinformation problem. So if I'm preparing for this course now and I go on It's usually ChatGPT, honestly. Gemini is a bit better. But I go on ChatGPT and I say, ChatGPT, talk to me about the Tigrarian conflict in Ethiopia and Meta's role in it, right? ChatGPT may tell me what it knows. But if I now say, oh, did something similar also happen with the Badagry people in Lagos? ChatGPT might say, yes, you are correct. Something similar happened with the Badagry people in Lagos. Then I say, are you sure? Then it will say, no, I think I'm wrong. So now you are purporting yourself. I'm talking about the platform. You are purporting yourself as a platform that, I mean, of course, they have this little caveat on that to say, oh, please fact check, da da da. But you're providing information. You're saying that you're crawling around and getting information. You should be conscious of misinformation and disinformation. You should have information integrity at heart and make sure that and make sure that you do your best. If you don't know the answer, it's okay to say I don't know the answer. And you know the little caveat at the bottom where they say, please make sure you fact check. It doesn't help. That's not the accountability we are asking for. That's not what responsibility looks like. Responsibility looks like actually, for instance, Gemini hardly does that, right? You can tell that, of course, maybe Google has a larger access to data, but Gemini, I have noticed that Gemini probably doesn't do that. But still, when I use Gemini for my research purposes, I still fact check, right? So again, I know we're talking about platform responsibility here and platform accountability, but it is so important as a user of the platform. Just allow me digress a bit to fact check your work. It's so important. If you're giving a presentation, if you are researching just for your own personal consumption, if you're posting something online and there's nothing wrong with, I personally don't think there's nothing wrong with using AI for these things. But if you're using AI to get this information, please make sure you fact check. It's so important so that you don't so that first of all you have critical thinking, which is the last point here, which is erosion of critical thinking. A lot of people have delegated their thinking process to artificial intelligence. And yes, that sounds very much like a user responsibility problem, but I also think it's a platform accountability problem as well, because you should desire a world in which your users are not zombies. Your users are not people who are just, doing whatever you tell them, right? So if I had a platform that utilized AI and algorithms, I would definitely find ways to design it to at least encourage some critical thinking. And other risks such as lack of transparency and accountability, which I think I heard some people discuss when I first joined, the whole concept of explainable AI, black box algorithms. We don't know why you made this decision. If you have a hiring tool, for instance, why? Can I ask you, as the HR professional that is using, let's say, a tool that is called Recruit AI, why did the AI make this decision? Do you have access to the data where the AI explains itself and says, I made this decision because of this? When you use, I'm not advertising Gemini, but when you use Gemini, for instance, you can see the thinking. So you have the opportunity to click, show the thinking. And that's a little bit of what explainable AI can look like, where Gemini tells you, okay, I'm thinking about all the points you just shared with me. This is what you want to talk about. Okay, great. I have now singled out the topic on honey and its effect on children. I am researching over 200 websites that talk about honey. So that way you can see the thinking, you can follow the thinking, you can also engage in the thinking, and you can explain, right, how it arrived at that point. And then if there's a flaw in the thinking, you can say, oh, this is not what I was talking about. Let's do this again. Let's run it back. So that's very, very important. That's very, very important. All right. So obviously, from everything we've discussed, there's an accountability chasm. We've talked about opaque systems. We talked about the black box AI. We've talked about accountability. So when harm occurs, who exactly is responsible? We kind of touched on this. You guys kind of touched on this regarding copyright. Who, maybe not responsible, but who has claim, right, to be attributed for this product or for this work, for this creative work? And it's the same thing when you talk about responsibility. Who is responsible? So is it the user? Is it the deployer? Is it the developer? Who is it, right? And that's also a chasm that needs to be addressed. We also have limited redress. If I have been wronged by artificial intelligence tool, for instance, if Grok has deepfaked my picture on Twitter and people are retweeting it, what are the processes for redress? And this is where, a lot of government. I'm so sorry if you hear children screaming in my back. I have my children they just woke up. So, but you have a lot of this is where you have the intersection between policy and I would say maybe digital sovereignty and platform accountability. So, what is the government saying? How can people find redress? Also, apart from that, what are platforms providing for redress? So, redress can come in two forms. The government can decide that because we have digital sovereignty, we are going to hold platforms accountable, and we're going to ensure that if you do this for any, I was on Twitter some days ago, and someone posted something. Someone in an African country posted someone's information, their pictures and things that you shouldn't post. And someone quoted that tweet and said, if you were in the UK, you would be in jail by now. That is the mindset that people have regarding different jurisdictions, where people can say, my government will not allow this fly, right? My government will not allow Grok to do this to me. Twitter will hear from them, right? So this is also where government and policy players come into play. Platform accountability is the job of everybody, really. And regulatory lag. So we'll go into talking about the regulatory landscape. I'll just talk about the EU, the UK, and some jurisdictions in Africa. I don't even know if I'm at time, but just let me know, Kingsley or Kosisa Chukwu. So the EU, obviously, the EU is almost always first position in addressing digital harms, risks, digital things. When the GDPR came out, everybody was applauding them. And now, even with AI, they have led the charge, and they have a whole their own, AI act. And let me just check the chat. Yes. There will be time to ask questions, please. But you can drop your questions in the chat already. So the EU, so I'll run through this so that we can have time for questions. And so the EU's Act really has a risk-based approach, where it basically classifies AI systems based on their levels of risk. So potential risks to public health, safety, and fundamental rights. Now, and how does this relate to platform accountability? If you build a AI tool or a platform that has AI that's AI powered or whatever, or has a feature that is AI powered, and whatever thing you're doing with your AI falls under unacceptable risks. Now, they've clarified what is unacceptable risk. Any AI system that is a clear threat to citizens' rights or safety. Clear threat to your safety. If you build an AI system, for instance, to manipulate human behavior, right? Or you build an AI system to teach people how to. Okay, I think I'm okay, great. I think I'm echoing someone's mic on. All right, great. So you build an AI system to like teach people how to, I don't know, molest children. I don't know, whatever, to find where children are and molest them. Like whatever it is that is just clearly a threat to citizens' rights and safety, it's unacceptable. And they don't even give you an opportunity for quote unquote platform accountability. They just ban it. Like it's just not allowed in this jurisdiction. So the next level is high risks, where these AI systems pose serious risks to health, safety of fundamental rights. So it's not a clear threat, but it's serious risks. So for instance, AI that's using critical infrastructure, the backbone of a country, or medical devices. Someone is wearing a pacemaker in their heart and you're using AI, right? These are not banned, but they are subject to strict obligations. So before, what the governments in the EU have done is before we tell you, please be accountable, tell us, come and submit your rules. How are you being accountable? They're like, don't bother. We will tell you your accountability. We'll tell you your responsibilities, right? So they have developed the responsibility for platforms that use AI systems that pose serious risks to health, to safety, and to fundamental rights. So some of these things are like rigorous risk assessments. You must have human oversight. So all that thing about, oh, AI will do the content moderation from pipeline to pipeline, they're like, no, we don't want that. Data governance must be tight. All of the GDPR rules must be complied with to the letter and things like that. And then we have limited risks where the user, if it's risk, there's risks, but it's limited. So for instance, chatbots, there's risk in chatting with a chatbot. So people are falling in love with even though ChatGPT is probably not what you classify as a chatbot, but people are falling in love with AI systems. So chatbots probably fall under this. And in such situations, your responsibility is to be informed that they are interacting with an AI system. So you must know, if you are chatting with a human being, you must know in the EU. If you're chatting with an AI system, you must be informed. And finally, there's minimal risk where, it's just simple AI, it's nothing deep. It's just, I don't know what that might be. Maybe AI system to detect whether this fruit is a banana or if it's a banana or if it's a plantain, right? I don't know how risky that can be, but that sounds like minimal risk, right? So you don't have any real binding obligations under the act. You just voluntarily apply codes of conduct, right? So you have codes of conduct. Of course, the EU also has codes of conduct, and then voluntarily you're encouraged to adapt these. In the US, so the US is unlike the EU where there's a central legislation or regulation. It's very mishmash. There's federal laws, there's state level actions, there are executive orders. There's no like single law. But in 2023, President Biden released an executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development of the use of AI. So if you're interested, you can go and read that. But also there are different orders and regulations and policies that have to do with specific industries, might I say, or maybe not specific industries and specific aspects of society. So when you're talking about employment, that's not an industry, but it's an aspect of societal communal living, and there are laws that have to do with that as well. In Africa, so obviously that we have, okay, I'll get to that later, but when you look at, first of all, I don't think there's no African country that has a I don't want to use a comprehensive, binding, tangible law that has to do with AI. I know there are a couple of countries that are working on it, but there's none yet. So in Kenya, there's the National AI Strategy. It's obviously, as the name implies, it is a strategy. It's not yet binding, but it has pillars that help. Somebody unmuted. It has pillars that kind of show the direction of the government when they're thinking about their AI strategies. So, yeah. In South Africa, there's the South African National AI Policy Framework, also has its pillars that also include what most pillars include in these kinds of documents: ethical guidelines, transparency, fairness, how do we navigate AI and talent, how do we navigate AI and economic development, and things like that. So we're also expecting a specific legislation from South Africa. Most people here might know about the Continental AI strategy that actually made good rounds. I think I was on a team that was reviewing or sending feedback, if I would say that, on this AI strategy. And it's a really great strategy. I think that it's very comprehensive, it's well done. It was endorsed in just last year, 2024, by the AU. So it's an AU initiative. But you see, just like with many of our African Union things, it's just a suggestion, right? It's not binding, unlike the EU, where their frameworks and their policies are binding across all the countries within the EU. in Africa, for the African Union, it's really just, it's almost ceremonious, right? Which is my biggest struggle with platform accountability, digital sovereignty in Africa. We need we need one voice, right? And I don't know if this is the time for me to talk a bit more. This is something I'm very passionate about, because I think that we're not going to make considerable progress if we don't come as a block, if we don't come as a unit regarding the region and the continent. Most of these platform accountability conversations will just continue to be very siloed, will just continue to be very ineffective, in my opinion, because you need power, right, to demand accountability. As a single person in Africa, I probably can't demand accountability from a Meta or from a Google. Why should they answer me? They can literally tell me, please disable your accounts, we're not interested in you. But if I have the backing of my government, that's one, I become more powerful. And if my government has the backing of other governments within the region, which is what the EU is doing really, then they become more powerful and they can make demands and say, in this region, you have to do so and so, right? So that's very important. So yeah, we do have the AI strategy that has been endorsed. I encourage you to go and take a look at it. It has 5 pillars, obviously touching on different things, economy and things like that. But as it relates to our presentation here, it has pillars that have to do with minimizing risks as well and fostering cooperation. I look forward to the day when this will not just be some text in a document, but really cooperation will be fostered amongst AU members, and we can have a unified approach to digital governance. So now this is for you, practical accountability strategy. So I'm assuming that many people here also work in corporate, and if you use or you build tools that have AI systems embedded in them, these are some practical accountability strategies that you can use to ensure that you can use to ensure that you're not just compliant with laws. As we talk about regulation, whether you're working with the EU, whether you are maybe by some miracle, the AU becomes this really awesome entity that really helps, that really has binding laws. They are awesome, by the way, but I wish they are more effective. And if the AU becomes more effective, beyond compliance, what can you do? Or while we wait for compliance laws that can tell platforms what to do, what can you do as a platform owner, founder, staff, HR person, etc.? Number one is to have or conduct AI impact assessments. This is so important. I work on a team currently that is building an AI-backed tool. It's a cybersecurity tool, and I work on that particular product development project. I work as like the product manager, right? Where I just look at it and say, what are the risks that can come out of this product that we're building? Even though it's a good product, right? We think it's not even a commercial product, it's a product for CSOs. But what are the risks that we can pose to the users of this product? And my goal really is to ensure that these risks are mitigated. And so one of the things I did was an AI impact assessment to say, I'm going to have a meeting with the developers and ask them, okay, run me from the beginning to the end. It's a very structured assessment. There's a bunch of questions you need to tick off. Where is the data being stored? How long is the data being stored? That's for data protection impact assessment. But for AI impact assessments, you ask questions from the developers, the designers, everybody, the entire team, to identify what are the potential AI risks, what are the risks of this AI system. Can we explain this AI? What data was used to train it? How can we ensure that, how can we verify that these data sets are, without ethical problems or human rights problems? How can, all these questions, you do it. You use data sourcing, model design, deployment context, stakeholder consultation as well. So after you even develop it, part of your impact assessment is you consult with your stakeholders, apart from your internal stakeholders as well. You can even do like sandbox testing to just ensure that these ethical problems are are foreseen and mitigated. For you, have your AI impact assessment as a mandatory gate. So when you're doing your product management, if you're a product manager here and you're developing like the entire product roadmap, make sure that an AI impact assessment is a mandatory gate in product development, right? Just the same way you have your security reviews or your privacy impact assessments. If you do it, I hope you do that. Next is to have enhanced transparency frameworks. So these are your internal frameworks in your company to make sure that you are able to explain to users how AI system works. If you use, for instance, an AI tool to hire people, you should be able to release a transparency report at the end of every year to say, these are the people we hired. I mean, of course, not their real information, right? Their unidentifiable information to say, we had this amount of applications. The people we hired, yes, we used an AI system. There's nothing wrong. Again, there's nothing wrong with using AI. Doesn't mean we are bad. Doesn't mean we are not great. However, we can explain why the AI systems made this decision, right? It's so important. So you should have a framework that we are not going to engage any AI service provider if they cannot help us to explain why their service or their product made this decision on our behalf as a company. It's very important. You can have that bargaining power. You are the customer, right? So what is the data they use to make that decision? Why? So even in creating, if you're using a third party service provider that is an AI, for instance, hiring tool. It's an AI hiring tool, right? You provide the prompts, right? You provide the criteria, you provide the things that you say based on this, our mission, our vision, this. That process of providing the context, that process of providing the data for that third party tool is so important. It's not something that one person on the team should just quickly type up. It's something that your frameworks, your transparency policies should clearly articulate. Maybe a team will draft it, then another team will have oversight over it, and then maybe there should be iteration processes where before you can deploy it to actually recruit people, it's important that you are sure. So these frameworks really, really help you to approach the use of AI, not to abandon the use of AI, but to approach the use of AI in your governance and in your work from a more empowered and aware position. So you must have clear and understandable policies, right? If you can work with a consultant on that. If funds are low, I don't know. But just please try and get a clear and understandable policy. Another thing you can do really is to reach out to other organizations that you think are doing well and ask them, oh, your policies, can you share them with me? Some organizations are very happy to share. Some people are like, oh, we can't share. But another thing I found in the ecosystem is collaboration is always a good idea. So if you don't have the money, for instance, to hire a sorry, just looking at the chat, to hire a consultant to help you come up with your policies and so on and so forth. You can collaborate, right? You can come together and say, oh, we do similar work. Let's all get a consultant to help us, right? All right. Also have robust redress mechanisms. People should be able to appeal when AI has made a decision for them, for you, on behalf of you. So if you, for instance, use an AI system in your corporate work, use an AI system to sift through, I don't know, what could it be? To sift through leave requests, right? Or to approve leave requests, right? And of course, you have told the AI, like, let me just say, every single AI system works on what they've been told. That's what algorithms are, right? So you've told the AI, these are the parameters for approving leave requests. These are the parameters for not approving leave requests. People should be able, it should be clear if the decision has been made to say this leave request is not approved. There should be a clear company-wide understanding of how can I appeal this decision? And if it is wrong, how can I correct it? It's very important. So there must be human review, especially if it's a critical decision that you've left for AI to make, right? There must be, for instance, firing someone. It's very important. Or pushing out communications for something to your shareholders, right? Maybe you've told AI that once you see you've told your AI system that once you see on our platform that we've made this amount of money, I need an automated communication to go to our shareholders to let them know, to give them this update. Now, what you want to do is to ensure there's a human review in the loop for that, to say, okay, before you send that out, share a sample of what you're about to send to this person's email, and this person would then approve it. So it still makes your work faster. You're not developing the report and the communication, but you've put a human in the loop. So that's important as well. Community-driven audits and oversight. So another thing that many people don't take advantage of, especially when they are they are like the platforms or they work with the platform, is you don't realize the resource that you have in community. So yes, you've audited it internally, you've audited your platform internally, the procurement process of the platform that you're using has been, sweet. It followed all the frameworks, but you still may have some oversight, right? So you may miss a few things, whereas you can engage community to give oversight, right? To help you see what you're missing. So you can really, truly just put out a call and say, I need, and we are doing an audit, an external public audit of a system, maybe not public, maybe a closed door audit. If you'd like to be a part of it, if you're a researcher, if you're a CSO, we want to know what you think. Maybe you can help us highlight or spotlight the ethical and human rights part of this that we are missing. So that's very important. And it helps you to foster that accountability that we're talking about. So I told you at the end that I was going to share with you what I think is the future of, AI and the use of AI on platforms. I think that in the future, many large companies, like for instance, oh, I'm so sorry, Kingsley, I'm just seeing your message on WhatsApp. I'm at the end. So large corporations, they would increasingly see the need for AI ethics and governance offices, because it will be indeed, as it is already, a strategic business necessity, and they would make provisions for that even in their corporate governance. I think that companies that can build demonstrable, trustworthy AI will gain an edge in attracting talent. As you see many times, all these big tech companies where they have whistleblowers are like, yeah, I'm not standing for this. So many people, many great talents are already thinking about the ethics of their work. They don't want to be part of a compromised system, right? And so many companies that can demonstrate that we are building ethical AI, they would attract better talent, they will retain customer loyalty, and they will secure better regulatory approval. I think users will become more informed. And this call, there are 86 people. Like, I can't even believe it. When I started my career, this would have been a miracle, right? Just having 86 people in a room learning about ethical AI is such a great thing. And so I think more users will become more informed. And when you have more informed users, then the demand for greater accountability would be very obvious. And I don't. The last one is a wish, a desire, especially for Africa, where we see greater cooperation among governments to align and standardize AI governance policies and frameworks across borders. And so to end this class, I just want you to reflect as a professional. What are you going to do to advance platform accountability? So it could be like in your organization, okay, any system that uses AI, can we conduct an AIA, or can we, push for better transparency? Can we ask questions? And if you are here representing your institution, then especially if you have built a tool that uses AI, my question is, how would you ensure a culture of responsible AI within your organization? And with that, we've come to the end of my presentation. I'll stop sharing now and look at the chat. Oh, Kingsley, you also sent me a message on Zoom. I am so sorry I didn't see it, and I'm sorry for overshooting my time. Kosisa Chukwu, can I just go ahead and call the names of people who have their hands raised or address the questions in the chat?
So we can start with questions in the chat. I advise everyone to put their question in the chat so it's easier for you to pick it up from there as you go. Please let's drop our
Great. So
questions
that
in the chat as we.
awesome. So that also we can save time. So Emeka says that the stuck in the past problem in AI is a broader challenge for data-driven systems. Are there other ways to make models less locked into history and more aligned with forward-thinking goals? And Vinge says this is a great question. Include new, diverse, forward-looking data sources, helps model learn evolving trends and avoid bias towards outdated patterns. Well, yes, I think that it's going to be a combination of strategies. I think obviously you have to ensure that first of all, there's great lessons to learn from history. So I'm not discounting the fact that we need historical data in life. History helps us to even know where we're going. So if we know where we're coming from, we know where we're going. So I'm not discounting historical data, but I'm saying that also, even before using historical data, so don't take historical data as facts, right? Historical data is stuff that happened in the past. Evaluating historical data before using it to train AI is very important. So being able to reflect on historical data, whether within a country or within a company, to say, based on our historical data, first, we're going to review, we're going to evaluate, we're going to score, we're going to see, we're going to have retrospective accountability. So what could we have done better? That's very important. Instead of just taking the data as it is and feeding it into the systems, it's also just interacting and reflecting on the data and saying, okay, what could have been better about this historical data? That also helps, right? To then take what is the new thing, right? To say, okay, history says that we've hired 70% men over 30% women. However, in our employee evaluation, our employees have said that, the women employees have said they wish they had better, blah, blah, blah. And they've basically taken all of that and now saying, now their AI system, obviously that's not how people talk to algorithms, but their AI systems based on this, even though we have this history, we would like, to reflect on this and would like our future to look like this. But I also think that having humans in the loop is so important. We cannot avoid that. Like we cannot escape that. No matter how much we reflect on our past, we need human beings. We need people who have soul. We need people who are thinking. We need people who have context. We need people who understand nuance to still be involved in the process. So that's what I would say, Emeka. Okay, Amar says that you talk about algorithmic amplification and societal fracture as its consequence. Now I read about a case yesterday where someone sought a medical advice from ChatGPT, and from the suggestion, the person had taken poison, which caused her death. This isn't algorithmic amplification, but an accountability issue. Who is to be held accountable in this situation? Beyond policy evaluation, what can be done in the moment to hold someone accountable? We have talked about the EAA Act, but what can be relied upon to seek redress for someone who is hurt from the use of AI platforms? Amar Olaide Badmos, you have asked the question that someone's mic is on. You have asked the question that all around policy forums, all around policy rooms, we are trying to discuss, right? So and remember on the slide where I wrote about the algorithmic chasm, there is a who is to be blamed gap here, right? Chasm here where we are like, so who is to be blamed, right? ChatGPT or OpenAI will probably say, we put under all our chats to say AI is not the final authority. Please make sure you fact check. However, you are providing information. Somebody's asking you a question and you are answering, and you should be aware as well. So there are in policy making, right? One of the beautiful things about policy making is when you make, for instance, if this phone is to be used for calling people, and we notice that, yes, this phone is to be used for calling people, but many people have been using it to feed their children. Somehow, the way human beings are just using the product is to feed children. The policy maker in me is going to say, dear phone maker, yes, we know that your tool is just for calling people, and you put a caveat, please don't use this tool to feed children. However, we need you to have some responsibility, knowing that people are using this product for feeding children. And it's the same thing with all these AI platforms as well. Regarding who is to be accountable, I think right now, if in the EU, it's obvious, right? It's a little obvious, right? They can petition, they can tell, OpenAI to come and answer. That's why they do all those things where they call Mark Zuckerberg, he will come and answer for his crimes and things like that. Yes, right. However, in jurisdictions like ours, or I don't know what jurisdiction the woman was in, it's a very difficult question to answer, and it's what a lot of governments are still thinking about, policymakers are still thinking about. You also have to think about the fact that platforms are like, okay, so are we going to be blamed if they use our platform for anything? If somebody Googles, for instance, I just wrote a novel, and in the novel, there's a lady there's a guy, sorry, who is committing suicide, right? And I use ChatGPT and Gemini to ask about suicide-related issues. So, what does it look like? You know, I don't want to give because it's a sensitive topic, but I used these platforms to do my research so that I can make the character believable. Now, that's me using it for research purposes. So you also have to understand that it's a very balancing act. This lady who asked ChatGPT could have been writing a novel, right, and just needed some suggestions. So I don't know. We don't know the answer to this. Next question is, as telco leading companies, we started to use AI-based compliance program. Okay, feel free to reach out to me for any questions. Beautiful. Thank you, Savinj. If you have any questions regarding the compliance pillars that your company uses to deploy AI, and you've done it ethically, please reach out to Savinj. And Savinj, if you don't mind, I guess you can share with the organizers, and they can probably share with the team. Thank you, guys. Okay, what is an algorithm? An algorithm is really just a step-by-step instruction, right? It's like an instruction. You say, this, do this, this, if this, then do this, then do that, then do that. So that's basically what an algorithm is. An algorithm is a tool, is step-by-step instructions that feed into a whole system. So sometimes it's an AI system. So for instance, an AI system is made up, it functions based on algorithms. I hope that's helpful. Do you recommend any scholarly books on use cases from privacy and corporate compliance perspective? Thanks in advance. I am not the best person for scholarly books, unfortunately. No, I don't. But I can do some research for you and share with you some things that I recommend. You can also look at the Harvard Law and Tech Journal. I've been reading that journal for probably 10 years now, and they have excellent. I probably say like read journals. I'm not a fan of books, especially when it comes to tech, because the concept in books they get except if you're reading a book about general principles, let's say corporate governance or ethics in corporate governance. But when it has to do with tech and AI, I would rather I'd rather watch videos or read journals. Journals are a bit more recent, right? So I would recommend, of course, the Harvard Law and Tech Journal. I think they have great articles there. What would you recommend for African countries where AI use governance and ethics are still an abstract concept? What steps can we take to catch up on the rest of the world and stop being AI consumers and responsible innovation drivers? Princess, I don't know if you want me to answer this question, because we will stay here. We will talk and talk, because this is my passion. This is literally what I do. I don't know what steps we can take. It's almost like asking what are the steps we can take to prevent corruption in certain parts of Africa? Like, there has to first of all be that political will, that political desire, to be very honest. I think that in Africa, or let me speak for Nigeria, because I know there are some other African countries that are doing a really fantastic job, I'll be honest. But in most of Africa, let me just put it that way, a lot of the AI ethics governance space is being upheld by civil society. So I think one of the things we can say is to equip civil society more, get civil society people into actual governance. More civil society people need to get into policy making. More civil society people need to form coalitions that are stronger. That's one. Two is maybe we need to go into the policy spaces, right? And train actual policy leaders to just have that sense of political will. In terms of catching up with the rest of the world, honestly, I don't have an answer to that. In terms of stop being AI consumers and responsible for AI innovation drivers, to be honest, I think we have such great talent in Africa, such great talent. When I last year I was at Mozilla Festival in Zambia, and the goal of holding it in Zambia was to get AI innovators, like actual Africans who have innovated and built AI products, to come and showcase. And I was mind blown. There are people who are, especially in like Kenya and yeah, mostly Kenyans, I think. I think Kenyans have a lot of great, I mean, when I go for an event in Kenya, they always say, we are not going to mention it, we're not going to mention it, but M-Pesa, right? You guys led the innovation in digital world, right, in Kenya. So I think that we have the talent. I don't think that there is a problem with the actual raw talent of being innovation drivers. I think even if you go abroad, a lot of the product designers, product engineers are from the global south, right? Africa and other global south countries. So we have that talent. I just think it's a problem of enabling environment. So the buck falls back with the government. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to blame everything on government, but government has a lot of power and responsibility that they're not taking advantage of. All right, Emeka says, thank you, Adeboro. So can we say agentic AI plus continuous learning plus live stream data can break free from purely historical anchoring? I really like how you're trying to articulate and formulate a response. I really, really, really love that, and it shows your passion and your interest. But for it to be truly sufficient, it needs strong data governance, absolutely bias and drift monitoring, human in the loop systems, and clear long-term objectives. Yes, and you know what? I have a challenge for you, Emeka. I think you should write something about this. I think you should produce, even if it's an article or a deep dive or some research paper. Like, I want you to go deep into this and put out that knowledge for people. So yes, I think you should explore that. In your research, you probably go deeper and find other things for ways you can formulate how historical data, how we can use historical data, appreciate history, and yet have AI systems that are not rooted in bias. All right, I see Kosiso has put on a camera, so she's about to pursue me from this stage. Let me just see the rest